Sorry to, I think I'm right on time. Sorry, I thought I was a little bit late. Was filming a commercial with Heisman Trophy winner George Rogers in my office. Always great to see George back on campus, and enjoyed visiting with him as well. And he's doing awesome. So just finished that up and came right in here. Appreciate everybody coming out today. Kind of kicking off spring practice here in a week or so, but wanted to get in here and have a chance to visit with you before we have practice one as well. Before we get going on that, certainly want to congratulate Matilde Kless for winning the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate tournament down there yesterday on Hilton Head Island. I was at that tournament last year, didn't get a chance to go this year, but what a great field of golfers that are in that tournament, and pretty cool for a Gamecock to win a tournament named after Darius, that Darius puts on. So congratulations to her, and best of luck to Kaylin and her team as they continue to play this spring as well and continue to get better. Know it's a big weekend coming up for Gamecock Athletics, and we got equestrian, women's tennis, softball, beach volleyball, men's tennis all playing this weekend in their sports. And then obviously we've got a really big baseball series coming up, so I want to wish Coach Kingston and his team best of luck this weekend, as well as Coach Staley and her team as they head up to Greenville for the SEC tournament. So I'm looking forward to being in Greenville Saturday for baseball. And then you can't assume anything or look ahead, but anticipating they'll win Friday and have a chance to watch our women's basketball team play in the semifinals on Saturday afternoon. So it should be a fun day in Greenville on Saturday. Best of luck to all of them competing. Hope you enjoyed getting to know all of our new transfers that have come in here this morning. It's a great group of young men. Wanted you to have the opportunity to visit with them, and they've really done a great job of adjusting and acclimating to what we're doing here at Carolina, and couldn't be more excited about them being here. There's a lot of new faces, obviously, in our program right now with the incoming freshmen that are here, the new transfers that have come in as well, new coaches and staff members that have come in. So it's, I've said it before, we just can't assume that everything is going to go a certain way in 2023 because of what had happened in 2022. We've got a lot of new faces, and it'll be key for us how quickly we can come together as a team, as a coaching staff, and how connected we can get here in a short period of time, and then add to that with the incoming guys that'll be here in June after they graduate high school as well. Excited about the coaching staff that we have intact, the new guys that we've added, the ones that have stayed. We've had coaches on this year's staff that have turned down opportunities in the NFL, turned down opportunities in the SEC, turned down opportunities in the ACC to go places and coach. Just had one this week that turned down a fellow SEC East school. So it's great to know that there's a lot of people that are interested in our coaches. I've said it before, we got a heck of a coaching staff here at Carolina, and when so many teams are trying to hire your coaches, it's a great statement about what we have here at Carolina and where we're going as well. Challenge for us, and I've challenged everybody in our football program since we came back in January, is how can we continue to get better, that we're not staying the same. Don't think that everything, just because something went well last year or worked well last year, that it's just status quo. How can we be better in everything that we're doing? The weight room, the training room, recruiting, coaching, nutrition, you name it, video, on and on and on. So let's find ways to do things better than they've ever been done before. Really pleased with the way that our guys have worked here in the last 2 months. It's a very workmanlike group. I know Coach Day is really excited about this group and the way they've been working in the weight room, and the leadership is coming together on this team right now. We've got a final team workout, or they lifted this morning, a final team workout tonight, and then spring break next week. So it'll be good for our guys to get away for a little bit. And then we come back right after spring break and start practice on the Tuesday that we get back from spring break. So excited to get back out on the field without a doubt. It's exciting to be going into March from a recruiting standpoint, to be able to get young men back on our campus this month. February is a dead period, so we haven't had any prospects on campus since January. So now that we're into March, recruits are able to visit. Got a great group of guys that are planning on coming throughout the month of March and April during spring practice, and anyone else that wants to come on. We got something special going on here at Carolina, and excited to show prospects and their families what we have. A couple just injury updates with our guys as we go into spring practice. Don't anticipate Tonka Hemingway or Kason Henry being able to do anything during spring practice. Both of those guys had a surgical procedure within the last few weeks or last month or so, nothing major, just to be able to go clean up some things from the end of last season so they can be at their best going in to this season. So they won't participate in spring practice, but will be good to go as we go into the summertime when they get back for summer workouts. Jordan Strawn and Mo Kaba will certainly be limited as they recover from their injuries and surgeries from the 2022 season. Don't expect Mo and Jordan to be able to do much during spring practice, if any, but they're trying to, so we can hopefully get some stuff out of them in practice. But their rehab is going great, and they look great out there. They're moving around well in the limited things that they're able to do. And then same thing with David Spalding. Probably more likely that David will be able to do something in spring practice as compared to Jordan and Mo. With David, potentially the last half of spring practice, we'll be able to get him out on the field and get him going. But other than that, knock on wood, we're in great shape from a health standpoint. Off-season's been good, pleased with the progress we've made, and excited to finish up everything in the weight room this week and then kind of get into phase 2 for us, which is spring practice. So with that, questions? David?
Shane, as Dowell has gotten in, have you and he, kind of come together on a consensus for what the playbook will look like? And are there certain things that you'll have to maybe table until the summer, like until you get past the second window of the transfer portal?
Yeah, a little bit of both of all that. Certainly we've talked, as far as what we're going to look like going forward. You've obviously got to present an offense to the players in spring practice, what that is. And there's going to be some new things that we call things. There's going to be some things that are identical to what we called them last year. I mean, there's going to be elements that we want to carry over. There's going to be elements that either Dow wants to bring or that we've looked at as a staff and said we needed to be doing more of this or less of this, like any season as well. Certainly there will be some pieces, some players that we add to the mix after spring practice for sure. Incoming freshmen, obviously, and but the bulk of it, will be in. And again, it's why you go out there and practice. We have an idea of what it wants to look like. I was reading some quotes from this press conference. I saw where Trey Knox said we were going to be up tempo and go really, really fast all the time. That was news to me. So I'm glad Trey and Dow have discussed that. Dow and I haven't. But that's another story. But no, I mean, we went fast at times last year, but we want to see what best fits our personnel and what best fits us as a team, offense, defense, and special teams. But yes, we've had some conversations. And again, like I've said before, it's what can our players best execute? There's things that we did well last year that we want to continue, and there's some things that as we sit there and try and make this offense the best it can be for us that we want to do differently, whether it be terminology or how we call plays, overall operation, things like that we can improve on.
Shane, you mentioned the transfers and being able to have an opportunity to listen to them. I know just the last couple of years, short sample size, but think of a guy like Juice, Nate Atkins, Carlins Patel, some of these players that have come from smaller colleges and come on over and done a good job for you. When you guys identify some of those smaller school players, and I don't know if I can ask you without giving the secrets away, but what does that process look like, and why do you think you guys have been so successful in those first 2 seasons?
I think one, it starts with being willing to take someone from a quote unquote smaller school. Unfortunately, I think there's probably some schools that say we're in the SEC. Why would we look at a running back from a Division II school, no matter how successful that school is? Or why would we look at a defensive back from Assumption College? Or why would we look at a quarterback from St. Francis? It's great football everywhere. And there's a lot of guys. I mean, you guys know high school recruiting is an inexact science, and there's a lot of great players that should be playing in the SEC, but for whatever reason ended up at different schools, and every situation is different. So being willing to say there's great football players and great coaching all across the country, it's just different levels. And then for us, it's you watch the tape, you see, the skill set on tape. Does it fit what you're trying to do as a program and what you're looking for at that position? And then you've really got to do a great job, whether it's a small school transfer or Spencer Rattler coming from Oklahoma, digging into making sure, one, they're the kind of person you want in your program. Two, they have the competitive spirit and the work ethic and the mentality that you want a player to have in order to be successful here. And then if they fit all those things, and you feel like they're going to be a fit, you trust your ability to bring them here and then develop them on the field, in the weight room as well. And we've done for the most part, a good job of doing that. But I'd say overall with the transfer portal in general, Mike, it's more difficult than ever because, these high school guys that we're recruiting, we spend years getting to know them. And some of these transfers that you're bringing in from a college, you literally have about 48 hours to find out everything you possibly can about a guy because he's on your campus and visiting, or you're making a decision on whether you want to offer the guy or not to bring him on campus. And then he's got 10 other schools that are trying to do the same thing with him as well. So you got to reach out to a bunch of contacts and find out as much as you can about a guy in a short period of time, which is really challenging, to be honest with you.
Do you have any kind of an update on the 3 guys who were suspended last month?
Still not a part of our team, still suspended. A lot of those decisions are made. That's a university issue as well, but none of the 3 are currently with us and don't anticipate them being back with us at any point in the near future, I'll say.
I guess, Shane, from an identity standpoint with Dowell, what do those conversations look like about what your identity looks like offensively, regardless of what plays you call, what system you run?
Yeah, probably very similar, Colin, to when I got hired. Balanced, and what is balance? Balance to me is not 50-50. It's the ability to run the ball when you need to run it and throw it when you need to throw it. So we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to be a physical offense that plays really, really hard and has the ability to be explosive. If you go back and look at our success the last 2 years, Colin, it's amazing. Just look at the explosive plays. For us, that's runs over 12 yards and passes over 18. When we win the explosive play battle in games against our opponent, our record it's like lights out how good we are. So continuing to find the ability to be explosive. And then whatever the identity is, quit freaking turning the ball over so much. It's 2 years in a row we've been last in the SEC in turning the ball over. It's embarrassing. And for me as the head coach, it's really embarrassing that 2 years in a row, no one in the SEC has thrown more interceptions and fumbled the ball given the ball to the other team more than we have. So obviously we haven't done a good enough job the last 2 years, starting with me, of coaching that. And it's 2 years in a row we've been, I think in 2022, we led the SEC in takeaways. 2021, we led the SEC in takeaways. 2022, I think we were second in the SEC defensively in takeaways, and we only missed leading it by 1 turnover, I believe. So we've been dynamic on defense. Let's continue to do that. But then offensively, we got to quit turning the ball over so much. So to me, that's an identity. Quit giving the ball to the other team. Run it when you need to run it. Throw it when you need to throw it. And let's continue to find ways to be explosive.
Shane, how did you and D'Angelo Gibbs reconnect? He was in here and saying that after he left Tennessee, he was down in Florida about to go start doing a Joe job, and then you got the calls. How did he get back on your radar? Did the name just kind of re-enter the portal? How did all that work?
Obviously, I knew the name because I was in Athens coaching at Georgia when D'Angelo was coming out of high school, and I know how heavily and hard we recruited D'Angelo when I was at Georgia with Kirby. So I knew about him from that standpoint and knew about him as a person. Really, I'll be honest with you, David, had kind of lost track of him a little bit after he went to Tennessee. He had a relationship with Derek Moore, Demo. Demo being over at Georgia Tech and having some connections to D'Angelo and his family. So Demo actually mentioned D'Angelo to me. It was probably late October, early November. We were getting ready to play Missouri or Tennessee, one of those last home games. And Demo just said, "Hey, D'Angelo Gibbs, here's what's going on. He'd be interested in coming here and walking on and joining the program for an opportunity." And we promised him an opportunity to come in and compete, and we'll see what happens. And he's been awesome. He really has been. Obviously, he'll be the first to tell you he probably needs to lose some weight and continue to get in shape, and that's to be understood. But he's an old soul, and he's got a great maturity, about himself. And kids and coaches on the team have kind of gotten to calling him the OG, because of his experience and age and whatnot. But D'Angelo, he's really has not much he hasn't seen and hasn't been through. So he's been good, and proud of him to this point.
Shane, going into spring practice, one of your returning players, obviously, Nick Emenwari, we know what he did last year kind of as a true freshman. So going into, this phase of the offseason and then going into next year, what are some things that you kind of anticipating from him and I guess some of his development and what kind of differences have you seen from him, I guess, in this training period since the last season ended?
Yeah, Nick's got to just continue to progress as a player. He obviously did some really great things as a true freshman that I don't think anybody anticipated. So for him, it's continuing to take the next step physically, getting more and more comfortable back there, mentally being able to do more and more with what we're doing from a defensive standpoint, schematically, the knowledge of the defense, making calls, getting guys lined up, and then just continuing to take the next step. And we've got a lot of new faces on defense. So if you look at the returning production, Nick's right up there in regards to experience from all the games that he's started. So it's hard to, you don't want to say that he's necessarily one of the leaders of this team, but in a lot of ways he is, just because of what he did last season, and he's played a lot of football for us, and then continued to be a great special teams player for us as well. Nick did some really good things on defense for us, and because of depth issues in the secondary, didn't do as much on special teams. But Nick's got to continue to get great as a DB, but now let's be an even more dominant special teams player for us as well in 2023.
Hey Shane, like you were talking about how thoroughly you investigate these guys, especially at smaller schools. Can you kind of talk more specifically about Mario and just the process of how you went through that and, the thoroughness of that?
Yeah. I know some of our recruiting staff people early on had seen his video, Gene, and they're like, this guy's got something to him and is a really good player. And watched it myself, and you just saw a lot of production. You saw a lot of touchdown runs for a really good team and really good program. And then I think we told the story before. We had Pete Limbo and Clayton White watch his tape, to get their perspective on him. Are we missing anything? And you saw a skill set, and you saw the things that you want to see out of a running back. And then it was, okay, let's dig into his history a little bit and reach out to the people, down there in the Charleston area in regards to him in high school and the kind of person he is. And then the contact period opened up when he was in the portal, and he came and watched one of our bowl practices before signing day. He came and spent some time around the team, watched the bowl practice, and got a chance to know him. We hadn't offered him at that point. He just came and visited on his own, and got him around all of our the people in our program, and they had a chance to get to know him in a short period of time. And then I think I called him the next day and offered him a scholarship here at Carolina. And he's a talented guy, and just watching him run around in workouts, he's got some explosiveness to him, and is a strong young man, and excited to watch him on the field here in a couple weeks, and once we get out there and actually start practicing football.
Shane, you enrolled a pretty large freshman class for this January period. What have you seen from the freshman group so far, especially a guy like Pup who had that experience playing at bowl practices to now?
Yeah, it's been easier for Pup because he was around us for a few weeks, and it's a little bit of a smoother transition. They've been great. I think Coach Day would tell you what we've done with our guys in January and February has been really, 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 really challenging and hard, and we've put everybody on our team in some really difficult circumstances, like every team does this time of year, trying to build that mental and physical toughness and camaraderie and leadership and finding out who you can count on and things like that. And our guys have been in a lot of situations. And the thing that I would say is, just with all those freshmen that came in, the moment hasn't been too big for them, and I've been proud of them. They've been in some tough situations, and they fight, they battle, and they don't look lost. That's to say the least. And then obviously it's a different deal once we start practicing a week from Tuesday, but anticipate them just continuing the progression that they're on right now and continue to get better.
I think every player we had in here today sighed and shook their head when we asked about Coach Day's strength program and what he's been putting them through, this offseason. Just how have you seen that strength training and what they're doing translate to the on-field stuff? Yeah,
it's been great. I mean, I could go on and on about that. One, it's it goes back to challenging everybody. That's the one thing I love about Luke and his staff is they're very willing to think outside the box. And I don't want to say we're unorthodox, but we probably do some things that other schools don't do. That there's a science behind it and things like that. So Luke's not afraid to try new things. He's willing to think outside the box. He's a very creative thinker, he and his entire staff, and they're very hands-on. So it starts with that. To going back to challenging the whole staff, let's find better ways of doing things, doing better than we ever have before. And since we've been here at Carolina, and they've taken that to heart. And I think just the overall strength gains that our guys have made are impressive. I mean, that translates over to the field, obviously, getting stronger, looking more like SEC football players at certain positions for sure. So I've been pleased with that. And then this time of year, it's about getting stronger. We've spent, probably a little bit more time on running, so we're doing a little bit more running going into spring practice than we did last season, just so they can handle the running that we'll be doing once we start practice. So that's been good just from a conditioning standpoint. And like every team in America right now, it's all about just building that mental toughness and along with how connected can we become as a team, and all that takes place in the weight room and out on the field in those off-season workouts. So seen a lot of it, translate over, and we'll continue to lift and get stronger throughout spring practice as well. We don't stop lifting weights. We just do it on the days we don't practice, and then the summertime will be really, really critical as well for that group also.
Trey Knox was in here earlier saying he thinks he has a little bit of Jaheim Bell in him. He feels like he's already a leader in that tight end room. What have you seen from him, and how is he kind of going to be an asset to this team already, just as a weapon in that passing game?
Yeah, he's an athletic guy. I mean, he's impressive. That tight end group's really impressive, period. And we've got so much more depth in that room and different skill sets. We got guys, that are your true, more conventional tight ends, if you will. And not that we didn't have it last year, we just got more of them. And Trey's a big body. Josh Simon's a stud and experienced guy, and Nick Elksness, and then the freshman that we have here as well. It's a good group. I mean, it went from we don't even really have tight ends in the bowl game to we've got, like, I don't want to say too many because you never have too many, but we got a lot of them. And I think it's been good for Trey. One, he's very he's a great young man, great personality, as you guys saw today. Always has a smile on his face. I saw where he commented about the family atmosphere here, and that's pretty cool to hear him say as a head coach. Because he's coming from another SEC program and he's been around the block a while. So we talk about positive energy all the time. He's a guy that's always got positive energy. And he's an athletic guy that I think is working really, really hard in the weight room, on special teams, on offense. And I think it's been a good transition for him. We're not necessarily taking everything that they did at Arkansas and saying all of a sudden this is our offense at Carolina, but there is some carryover in certain elements of what we're doing offensively, where from a learning standpoint, I think that's been a little bit easier for Trey, and he can help those other tight ends as well because he's got some experience and maybe what Dowell's calling and things like that has carried over from Arkansas.
Shane, it seems like there's been an unusual amount of turnover in coordinators, particularly on offense in the SEC and in your geographic footprint. What do you think about that? And then part two, are you concerned for college football that guys are going to the NFL for, I'm not going to say what reasons you can say, but is that a concern?
The first part about the SEC coordinator or the coordinators in general, because it's not just SEC. Yeah, I was. I'll be honest with you, I really hadn't thought about it, and I saw a stat about that a week or two ago, and kind of opened my eyes, particularly in the SEC. All the new offensive coordinators in the SEC, and I think every situation is different. Some guys didn't leave by their own choice. Some guys left for what they consider maybe better opportunities. To me, you do a great job, and you're at the highest level of college football when you do a great job in a coordinator position. There's opportunities that present themselves that are, in their minds, opportunities to advance their career for sure. Just like, being a head coach, it's a very volatile position and a lot of pressure, as well. So I think you see that also. But again, every situation is different, but it is unique, when you talk about every summer we sit down as a staff and talk about the 12 opponents that we're going to play each year, and we talk about the returning guys on offense, including the coaching staff, defense, special teams. There'll be a lot of newness this year that we got to figure out as far as our off-season studies of teams and coaching staffs. And yeah, it's concerning. There's no doubt about it. I think the quality of life right now as a college football coach is not as good as it can be. And I think there's a lot of guys, Gene, that one, their end goal is to go to the NFL. Some coaches feel that way, that they, to me, that's like, or not to me, but to them, that's the pinnacle, and they want to get to the NFL. So I think that's always been the case, and there's always been a lot of guys, not just now, there's always been college coaches that have said they want to go to the NFL because they're tired of recruiting. I've heard that before. It's not like that just already started, but I think there's a lot of elements of college athletics that are more it's a different time period. I don't want to say more challenging. We're just dealing with things as college coaches that we've never dealt with before, and everybody's trying to figure it out and navigate it as well. And it's a 365-day-a-year job. I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago with an NFL coach, and he was getting interviewed, and he was talking about college coaching, and because he had been in the college ranks, and he was talking about pro coaching, and he was saying how he loves the NFL because there's days this time of year and there's days in the summertime where he'll go 4 or 5 days without even looking at his cell phone, and that is like so foreign to me. Like, I don't even know what that feels like. I have a hard time going 4 or 5 minutes without looking at it, and he's going days. So it's just different, because you don't have the recruiting part of it in the NFL. But definitely, I know I'm getting long-winded with your answer, Gene, but there's some things, and we've talked about it as coaches, that certainly the recruiting calendar and when you're doing things, we can be adjusted, around not just this time of year in the summertime, but December was a grind with, signing day and the transfer portal and getting ready for a bowl game and everything else. There's a lot of things that we're all going through it for the first time, and we're all trying to figure out how to make it better and more sustainable for everybody. And this isn't me jumping on a soapbox and saying things are tough. I love what I do and love who I do it with, and don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life. But certainly, when you're off, you're not really off in college athletics. But I think that's always been the case. So sorry for the 6-minute answer on that.
Yeah, I got 2 for you. How do you feel about the proposals to speed up the college game and eliminate some plays, and also your thoughts on, the reports of Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC maybe earlier than expected?
Speeding up the game, yeah, that was something that we discussed. We had a head coaches meeting, all the SEC head coaches. We were in Birmingham, I think 2 weeks ago today, if I'm not mistaken, or 3 weeks ago today, whatever day that was announced, as a matter of fact. It came out that night, whenever that was. And that was one of the things that we discussed, and that was my first time hearing about it, to be honest with you. And I'm all for what is, one, continues to make Williams-Brice Stadium such an unbelievable fan experience on a Saturday, because it's already elite, and we don't want to lose that. We want to continue to make that the case. And if that means that these games are getting a little bit too long, then certainly, I'm all for looking at ways to adjust it, because there was a study done, and frankly, our games are a lot longer than NFL games, just time length and things like that. And then certainly, one area of concern is with the expanded playoff. There's a potential, I think, for teams to play 17 games. I think would be the max if you played in a conference championship game, and then 4 playoff games. I think that's right. That's a lot of football. And when you talk about games that are sometimes close, an offense may play 100 plays, and then you times that by 17. That's a lot of football plays. So when you talk about player safety and things like that, those are all things that we certainly need to consider. So I know it's still being discussed, but I can see why. And then in regards to Oklahoma and Texas, I think it's great. I thought it was exciting that they're coming into the league, exciting for our fans to be able to take a trip to Norman, Oklahoma, or Austin, Texas, and for them to come here. But then also the way the schedules, it sounds like will be adjusted, where we'll be able to get to pretty much everywhere in the SEC over a 4-year span or 2-year span, I guess is what it is, 4-year span. That every freshman that came in here would get a chance if he stayed 4 years to see every venue. I think it's good, and certainly we play a really, 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 really challenging schedule every single season, and that's only going to make it more and more challenging. But I'm excited for it when it happens, and then I got enough to worry about with 2023 right now. But looking forward to getting them in here.
I'll ask you two, because I know Colin was talking about asking you this one, just to piggyback off that. The first one would be Clemson. Would you still want to be able to play that game? Because obviously with everything that's going on with the SEC, there's a possibility that there could be less non-conference games. I'm sure I know what the answer is going to be, but just to give you the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think it's one of the great rivalries in all of college football, and don't really want to see that go away. I mean, there's no question if we play 9 conference games and then, an in-state rival like them, that your schedule year in, year out is probably going to be one of, if not the toughest in the country year in, year out. But as a competitor, I love that. And I'm a college football traditionalist and all that. And I don't want to see those rivalries, go away because of conference expansion. So, yeah.
And the other question for you, I know you can give me the coach answer, but, heading into year 3, expectations, especially externally, I'm sure internally as well, are higher than when you first arrived here.
Yeah.
What's just different, you feel like, going into this season in terms of where this program is in comparison to where this program was in your first year around this time?
One, outside this building, just like you said, the expectations, the energy and excitement, about South Carolina football is a lot higher than what it was 2 years ago. I get a lot more media requests that Steve comes to me with this year than I did 2 years ago. I get a lot more invitations to speak at different corporate events and things like that outside of Gamecock Club, events. My first year here, I think the Gamecock Club wanted to talk to me, and maybe the Rotary Club, which is great. Now it's just a lot more regionally, nationally, whatever, which is different for me. From a personal standpoint, and love that part of it. Don't get me wrong. So that part's been different outside the building, which we want those expectations and that energy level. And then I think just inside the building, Mike, it's just the expectations with our guys of what we expect, day in, day out. There's not as many, knock on wood, issues that come up academically, or guys being on time or doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not sure what door y'all walk in and out of each day, but the door right down there at the bottom of the steps, the first sign they see when they come in the building each day and the last one they see is don't get tired of doing what's right. Our players do. And to me, that's it. Like, don't get tired of doing what's right. And that's going to class, and that's being on time for everything. And if you're supposed to weigh in before a workout, weigh in. If you're supposed to wear black shorts, black T-shirt, and white socks and black shoes, and have that on. And we don't have to send you back because you got garnet shoes and black socks or whatever it may be. So just that. And then I think just the type of young men that we continue to bring into the program that embody what we want to be about. It's a fun group to be around. It's a very, workmanlike group that knows what to expect. And year 1, and in a lot of ways, year 2, guys were still trying to, figure that out in a lot of ways. And we've done some good things. We obviously got a lot of work to do. By no means have we arrived. And now the challenge for us is we've gone from 6 regular season wins to 8 regular season wins. And now the challenge, and it's a big challenge, is to take that next step, and it's continuing to do the things that we've done really, really well, do them better than we've done them, and then continue in every area. We're not getting complacent. We're continuing to move forward, players, coaches, staff. Yep. Thank you, guys. See y'all soon.